Yes, good evening. My name is Stephen Kavanagh and I'm the Chief Constable of Essex Police.
Thank you for speaking. By my calculations, it's just over 12 months since you gave your first media conference in this very room. Has it been a roller coaster, Chief Constable?
It's been an absolute blast. I think I mentioned to you 12 months ago that this was probably the proudest appointment of my career, and I've had some pretty interesting ones. 12 months on, it continues to be the proudest appointment of my career. Today we combine the announcement of investment of 133 people into domestic abuse teams. We combine the announcement that we're going to be recruiting officers to make sure we don't go off the cliff in terms of recruitment. But at the same time, we're going to be reducing the specialisms. The roads officers, the firearms officers and the public order officers are going to be reduced so that we can invest more in local policing needs.
What do you believe has been your biggest achievement so far? Surviving?
No, not at all. The one thing my job is not to do is to survive. My job is to support and lead a force that have been through a difficult 3 years with different reports. It's about giving the force the confidence to make informed judgments as we go forward. It's about making sure the workforce feels that they can both talk to me and that they're accountable to local communities. My greatest achievement, well, we've seen crime reduce in the last 12 months, we've seen more people brought to justice, and we've seen satisfaction rise significantly. So that's my greatest achievement. But my biggest challenge is not to deliver performance in my tenure as Chief Constable. My biggest challenge is to make sure that there is a force fit for delivering for the next 10 to 20 years.
You're redeploying how many officers back to the neighbourhoods?
Well, we're going to be reducing firearms officers from 109 to 85. We're going to be reducing roads officers from 160 to about 103. And we're going to be reducing public order officers from 75 to 50. Now, some of those posts are going to be removed from the force, but officers are going to be returned to local policing 999 calls, response calls, and at the same time we're doing this, all of the response officers that currently work across the county will be returning to local command.
When did the penny drop that actually it's the neighbourhoods where police really are needed? We don't need Starsky and Hutch out there with firearms really in Essex, do we? We need them at grassroots level, locally, being seen.
The penny hasn't dropped, the penny's always been there. I think, again, if you look to your interview 12 months ago with me, I've always been committed to local policing. Actually, we do have firearms across the county. We have situations where those public order teams respond constantly to local policing issues, the knife crime problem in Clacton, the seasonal demands in Southend. They're valuable colleagues, and I actually think, say somebody who's prepared to go through a door with a firearm, not knowing whether or not there'll be somebody on the other side, Starsky and Hutch demeans the scale of their bravery and their decency. And actually I recognise that when I take people out of roads, out of firearms and out of public order, they're proud officers who've specialised, and this is a big change to their lives.
How many officers have left the force since you arrived 12 months ago?
I think the force is probably about 100 officers smaller, and it will decrease by another 250 by 16-17. But that's, as I mentioned, that's why I continue to invest in recruitment, so that we have a steady trajectory of reducing numbers rather than going off a cliff.
And how many more will you have to dismiss, get rid of, under the appalling government cuts?
This is the comprehensive spending review part 2. Obviously, following the election, if there is a further comprehensive spending review, my job is to deliver whatever the government gives to me. I think that people of Essex should also recognise that we are the second cheapest force in the country per head, and that we are already incredibly lean, but we're a confident force and will continue to deliver to the best of our ability.
Burglaries have soared by coincidence since you took over.
No, they haven't. Burglaries down nearly 9% since I took over. I think it was down 9% in the last 6 months. It's down 5.4% in the last 12 months. So burglaries are reducing.
What about detection rate? Is that doing as well?
Detection rate has increased by 2.2%, which brings it up to about 24%.
Are they genuine figures?
I'm really delighted that, if you have a look at the last HMI inspection around data integrity, there was some pretty shallow reporting of that. We were one of the 13 forces that were inspected, and the levels of accuracy in Essex varied between 91 and 93%. So I'm proud of the integrity of the data that we have.
You set about instigating the retrialling, as it were, of body cams, but particularly applying to domestic abuse. How are things going with that, sir?
Absolutely brilliantly. Although we have to have them properly assessed by the College of Policing, we've seen the number of guilty pleas at court go up by about 17%. The number of people being charged with offences have increased again by about 8%. What this means is that the poor victims of domestic abuse are no longer being burdened with producing all of the evidence. When we turn up, we can produce good quality imagery very quickly, much more persuasive than statements. And what we're seeing at court is these bullies don't want the court to see the reality of their behaviour. And it's proved to be really effective for us so far, which is just one area we've invested with domestic abuse. We've invested in information sharing. We've got multi-agency safeguarding hubs being developed in Thurrock very quickly now. Southend's coming online as well. And of course, at the same time now, we're going to have these dedicated domestic abuse investigation teams. It means that men and women suffering domestic abuse across the county will be safer.
How many people are being redeployed into domestic abuse?
133.
You're targeting officers to actually things that affect people out there, Josephine Public.
Well, policing, whenever you send a police officer out there, whether the great officers who served doing marine work or the officers on Mounted Branch, they will always find work to do. But the reality is, unfortunately, we're going through an era where I have to be very clear on how we answer 999 calls and how we respond quickly to those emergency needs of Essex.
There is perhaps a sadness and a concern that despite the re-emphasis upon neighbourhoods, you won't be opening stations that have closed, such as Melbourne and Molsham Lodge. What do you say to that?
I think if you look at the needs of communities now, the way that children are abused on the internet, the way frauds are taking place, the way children are being sexually exploited on the internet, the policing model of having police stations in every area is a bygone model. It's not going to meet the needs of 14, 15-year-old people in the next 10 years as we go forward.
But you can have computers and people looking at computers at Melbourne, can't you? And checking out.
It's about making sure that we don't have too many buildings, we don't have the costs, we don't have the security. This isn't about withdrawing from communities. As we go through this phase, hopefully people are seeing Essex Police and me as Chief Constable take investing in local communities more seriously than ever. But the need for us to look at different ways of contacting the public and letting them contact us. Some of the members of the public like to get access to their crimes now through apps. Some people want to text chat around where they're reporting their mobile phone missing. And we still rely on 999 and 101 calls. We need to modernise if we're going to meet the needs of the next generation.
Chief Constable, I understand that gangsters from London, your part of the world, are heading to Essex. Not because they miss you, because they see it as a soft touch and easy pickings. What do you say to that question?
I think criminals have always come out from London, going back to the craze and probably Victorian times. We're not a soft touch. I'm aware of incidents this weekend in which my officers very clearly got involved in incidents and arrests, which have sent a message to those coming out from London that if they come here, we'll deal with them fairly but robustly, and we're going to protect the communities of Essex.
Unbelievably, amidst all this doom and gloom, I went to the Essex Police website today, and you're recruiting. Is this an oxymoron?
No, it's actually really thoughtful leadership, because what the people of Essex don't want is for us to stagnate with an ageing workforce. What they want is for us to reduce our numbers in a steady way. So we're recruiting, I'm proud that we're recruiting, and that means that we'll have a steady flight path, if you were, into the new numbers that we'll have to police with. But it also means young blood, new enthusiasm, new life experiences for us as a police force are being brought in each month, and that's got to be good for Essex.
You saved a life earlier this year following a tragic road accident. Is this what coppering is really all about?
I'm not sure whether I saved a life. There was a lady trapped in a car in quite dangerous circumstances, but the real heroes on that day were the members of the public who were caring for her husband and her children, and who helped me lift her out. You know, I was just another member of the public on that day, and it was those people who were the real heroes. And it is, you know, I can't drive past something and the people of Essex wouldn't expect me to. I went to the front of the queue, I tried to protect the public from the fire that was going on, but of course we mustn't forget that the poor man in the red Corvette died on that day as well.
Has anything made you particularly proud to be Chief Constable in your first 12 months?
Every time I put on the Essex uniform, every time I put that wonderful hat on with the 3 swords of Essex, every time I go out there and I see the officers and staff, and I go out on a weekly basis with my meetings with my chief officers, it makes me incredibly proud. I've been involved in fights on duty with people getting involved in violent assaults. I've done stops where I've arrested drug dealers, but I've also set a clear strategy for this force. This isn't about me being an action man, this is about me setting a calm, clear leadership direction for the whole force. Every day I wake up, I'm proud to be the Chief Constable of Essex.
What is your message to officers and staff? Does it come from Dad's army? Don't panic, don't panic.
My message to staff is, you deliver incredibly already. We've got some massive challenges coming over the horizon, but we're not panicking in the slightest. We are one of the best police forces in the country, but there's more in the tank and we can always do more. It's about us keeping people safe, not chasing numbers.
Thank you, Chief Constable.